Don't look now, but here come the Baylor Bears. This is the Locked On Baylor Football Postgame Show.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another postgame show, Locked On Baylor, the number one destination for Baylor football postgame. I'm your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas and the Cam Show on YouTube through Rogue Media Sports Network. Appreciate y'all hopping in. Those of you live, those of you watching after the fact, listening after the fact. Let's talk about this. These are fun when Baylor wins football games. Had it last week. They go out, they take out Oklahoma State on homecoming, 38-28. Was it spotless? No. Was it sloppy at times? Yeah. But it was fun, and they got the win. And again, you're seeing improvement with this team. I thought last week was about as perfect as you could have played. This week, again, a little bit less spotless than last week, but you took care of a Big 12 team and you beat them by 2 scores. You know, a team that was desperate, by the way. There's 2 ways to look at it, obviously. I think there's a little bit of both in here. Oklahoma State, not great. Now 0-5 in the conference, right? Can't sugarcoat that. But the other way you could look at it is that's a desperate team. And that is the closer we got to kickoff was the more I was thinking the latter. Oklahoma State is a good football program. They have a good coach. They have a lot of tradition. They have a coach who that's his alma mater, right? So they're not. And by the way, they were like one of the favorites to win this conference at the beginning of the year. They had the nation's leading rusher from last year. Like that's a proud team over there that went to the conference championship a year ago. They're not just going to go down easy the way they didn't against BYU last week. They didn't today, and Baylor still beat them. And that is a really, really good sign for this team. But we talked about it on Friday's show. Baylor needing to continue that dominance they had running the ball against Texas Tech. And you're thinking, boy, I don't know if it's going to get much better than what they did against Tech. Almost 12 yards a carry for Bryson Washington. He goes over 100 yards. You rush for 255. Can I interest you in this game? Because it did get better. Oklahoma State, worst rushing defense in the conference. That is not lost on me. But you ran for 343 yards. Dawson Pendergrass smashing a career high. 142 yards on the ground on 6 carries. 24 yards a carry. That's incredible. That's incredible. And it was his game, by the way. I mean, if you couldn't tell through those stats, 6 for 142 and a touchdown. But Bryson Washington, I think got a little nicked up early in that game, but clearly what you could see when Pendergrass was running and when Richard Reese was running a few times in the first half, he went for 6 for 52, by the way. Not a bad day at the office for him. Those guys are more patient runners than Bryson Washington is. And so they were able to find their holes against Oklahoma State because, as you could tell from their stats, right, of how teams run against them, there are going to be holes a lot. And Bryson Washington's style is hit that hole right away. And a lot of the time that works. And for this particular matchup, the more patient runners were going to be more effective. And we saw that early on, and that's why Dawson Pendergrass has the career day. But the offensive numbers for Baylor in this one, how about 565 total yards? Again, 343 on the ground, and they go for 9.7 yards per play. 9.7 yards per play. Wow. For the whole game, 20 yards of completion, 9 yards a rush. That's stupid. That's video game stuff. That's not conference game stuff. That's not conference game against a team that went to the Big 12 championship game last year. That's not what that's supposed to be. Baylor made it that against Oklahoma State. They absolutely bullied them. Like, there was a point in the game where I'm thinking they're too physical for Oklahoma State. It felt that way last week against Tech. Did you ever think we'd be saying that about this Baylor team? After what we saw the first 6 games of this year, after what we saw last year, that we'd be sitting here at a conference game 2 weeks in a row saying, yeah, Baylor is just too tough for this team. They overwhelmed them. They bullied them. 598 yards on the ground in the last 2 weeks. They've given up 1 sack in the last 3 weeks. The offensive line's coming together. The weapons are coming together. Sawyer Robertson, you already knew you had a good quarterback in there. And it's coming through week after week after week. He doesn't have bad games. And they barely needed him today. 11-19 for 222. Did throw a pick on one that I think he'd really like to have back. In fact, that was the first oh no interception I've seen from him this season. And 3 touchdown passes. Just another casual 3 touchdown passes. Do you know how tough that's been to come by the last couple of years? Like they have 2 of those a year with Blake Shapen and Gary Bohannon, and the last year Charlie Brewer. Sawyer Robertson does it every week. Every week. 3 touchdown passes this week, 5 the week before, a couple against Iowa State, 3 against BYU. He does it for fun. 3 against 3 total touchdowns, I think, against Colorado. By the way, rushed for a touchdown too. Rushed for a touchdown today of 40 some odd yards, I want to say. And that's his 3rd, I think, touchdown rush of more than 40 yards this season. Guy's a weapon. Yeah, it was a 41-yard touchdown run. Guy's an absolute weapon. And defensively, it could have been better, but honestly, when you look at the numbers, tough to argue with what it is. Ollie Gordon won the Doak Walker Award last year. He led the country in rushing yards. Oklahoma State has a glittering history of running backs, maybe more so than almost any school in the country. He's the only one to win the Doak Walker Award. Today, you held him under 80 yards. You bottled him up. His longest rush was 13 yards. Just barely 4 yards a carry in this one. And I know he scored 2 touchdowns. He threw a 2-point conversion, which is an incredible play by Brendan Presley. By God, I'm so happy. Hopefully that is the last time Baylor ever has to face Brendan Presley. My God. But you held him in check. I thought you did a good job against Taj Brooks last week. 25 carries for 125 and a touchdown. You did even better against Ollie Gordon today. And the man who made it his personal mission to make Ollie Gordon's life hell was Matt Jones. What a game for Matt Jones. And he comes into the postgame, and we kind of ask, whoa, you're a man possessed today. And he starts telling the story about his grandfather. His grandfather who never got a chance to go out to actually see him at a college game. His grandfather passed away last spring, and Matt Jones brought the ashes with him to the game today. And he has one of the best games of his life. He was unbelievable in this one. 12 total tackles, 10 solo tackles, 3 tackles for loss, a sack, a forced fumble at the goal line. And he was giving it to Ollie Gordon the whole game. Gordon does kind of go through him for one of the touchdowns, but they were yapping from play one. And early in that first half, Matt Jones is the one who knocks the ball out of Ollie Gordon's hands as he's about to go in the end zone. It's a huge play. Takes 7 off the board. And then Baylor goes down the field 99 yards in 4 plays in a minute and a half. 87 yards on that drive by Dawson Pendergrass, by the way. But it starts with Matt Jones. And he had huge plays. He had one late in the game, too, that it was a 3rd and 2. They went direct snap to Ollie, and Matt Jones just blew it up. Nobody could do that against this guy last year. Nobody. Matt Jones just made it his personal mission. And I don't know if it's because Ollie Gordon basically knocked out Odessa Permian by himself in 2021. Of course, Matt Jones is already at Baylor, but I don't know. It's just a humble brag to say I covered Ollie Gordon in high school, really. The chat is blowing up right now. I thought winning was going to be bad for business when it comes to this show. You guys have proven that that's not the case. And I'm glad, because I obviously want Baylor to win. If we're being totally honest, of course I want Baylor to win. This was fun today. Big explosive plays on the ground, through the air. You forced turnovers. You bottled up their best player, one of the best players in the country coming into this year. And another one, by the way, who we talked about yesterday with Cody Stovall, it's not the counting stats that he had last year, but he's number 1 in the country in yards after first contact. And you still held him under 80 yards. Fantastic game all the way around. I thought they'd let Oklahoma State into this game a bit too much. Like, it didn't feel like it should have been 17 all at halftime. I thought Baylor got conservative at points in the second half. I didn't like the way they attacked offensively for a lot of that second half, but they won the game by 2 scores. They got it done at home. Welcome surprise in a Big 12 game. First Big 12 home win in 2 years. October 22nd, 2022, 35-23 against Kansas. That was the last one. Also homecoming, by the way. The power of the Sailor Bear helmet. I do have to say one thing about Brennan Presley, because my God, what a player. What a player. I think this guy is going to be making a lot of us NFL fans pretty PO'd week after week in the coming years. I mean, this guy has got Pro Bowl slot receiver written all over him. That's one of the best performances I've ever seen against a Baylor team. 15 catches for 183 yards, a touchdown, and a 2-point conversion catch that you will see on SportsCenter Top 10 tomorrow. I mean, incredible. On his back, ball's like below him, flies up in the air. He's on his back and catches it. 15 catches on 17 targets and 122 yards after the catch. Do you want to know the reason why Oklahoma State was in this game for so long? It's 80. It's number 80 in white and orange. That's why. Brennan Presley, you couldn't cover him in a phone booth. It was incredible. And by the way, props up to Alan Pullman, who did not have a bad game by any stretch. In fact, he had, I think, a pretty good game. I thought Oklahoma State had a good game plan offensively, if we're being totally honest. You know, he didn't get Ollie Gordon going the way you probably needed him to, and that might be the difference in the game. But Bowman goes 28 of 42 for 360, a touchdown and a pick. For a guy who's been on the bench the last couple of weeks, the guy they gave up on, they played 2 guys over him. That's a pretty good game. That's a pretty good game for him. But better game by Baylor. Oklahoma State, you give them credit. They kept hitting back. And Baylor did not fold when they were playing with their food, and Oklahoma State was hitting back and keeping this thing close. Baylor hit back themselves, which is something that we needed to see from this team and from, you know, a team coached by Dave Aranda. And we had that. This is real tangible momentum. You have a massive game next week, which I'm not going to talk much about today. Probably give it a couple of days, but you've got 2 of the hottest teams in the Big 12 meeting in Waco next week. And oh, by the way, it's your biggest rival that you've beaten once in the last decade. Because that team looked like they were left for dead a few weeks ago too, just like Baylor. But they're very much in it. They score a big win over Tech today. TCU does. And that's going to be an absolute barn burner at night next week. Blackout at McLean Stadium. My God. Wow. Anyway. Of course, I got to mention the Ashton Hawkins play, because we talk about the yapping between Matt Jones and Ollie Gordon and Keaton Thomas and Ollie Gordon. But Ashton Hawkins was matched up with Corey Brown, who they were talking after every play. Corey Brown was having a good game against him. And there was this play in the third quarter where they both like had their hands on each other's shoulders, you know, like holding them out there and like hand fighting. And it took the refs coming over before the start of the next play to be like, cut it out. Stop it. The play's over. Cut it out. The next play, Ashton Hawkins goes up and makes one of the best catches I've ever seen by a Baylor receiver. Just absolutely mosses the guy. Touchdown. Dancing. You won the battle and the war. A fun day at McLean Stadium. A fun day. And from what we've seen the last couple of years, that's about all you can ask for. That's 2 fun Saturdays in a row. And we'll have a lot of fun building up to this next one. My goodness, the comments are popping off. Dawson Pendergrass, yeah, that's it. I mean, he's been great. Prepare your kids for the 8-4 Baylor Bears. It's very much on the table. There's still, I think, things you need to see more consistently, but that's absolutely on the table. You don't have a good record against TCU the last decade. That's going to be the elephant in the room this week. You've never won in Morgantown, which we'll keep banging that drum until they win in Morgantown. But that is absolutely on the table. Absolutely. And it feels tangible. There's hope here. And do not let anyone knock you down for having hope and faith in this team all of a sudden, because it's there. We've seen it. We've absolutely seen it. Does Sawyer have eligibility left? Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Yeah. Linton was great. He sure was. He had a pretty good one. Saw Dog Heisman next year. Look, I might not go that far yet, but his numbers in the Big 12 this year are incredible. I mean, he has absolutely been one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12 this year. Like, if the season ended today, he would be an all Big 12 guy. Shador, obviously great, but Fafita's been underwhelming. Becht is good, but more of a game manager. Again, not an insult, more of a game manager. Hoover has some decent numbers, but it was some empty stats in there. I think Sawyer's been just as good. I mean, the touchdown pass is awesome. The touchdown pass numbers are incredible for him. So absolutely, I think all that to say, maybe not a Heisman guy next year, but when was the last time we went into a season really confident in the quarterback? It's been a while. I mean, some of us had that hope in Blake Shapen from what we saw in the Oklahoma State game. I was in that camp, by the way. I was a Blake Shapen guy at the beginning. But you knew it was kind of a leap of faith a little bit. It was a wing and a prayer. You know, you saw it for one game against a really good defense, but one game. So this one, you will have 3/4 of the season to look at and say, this is one of the best quarterbacks in the conference, and we've got him coming back. It's a luxury Baylor's not had in a long time. Bailey says Spav has to scheme up some stuff against pressure. Sawyer was uncomfortable. TCU's probably going to bring some exotic stuff. That's probably the case. This is kind of something I was pointing to in that second half, which I didn't like. There was 2 drives in this game where they ran on first and second down, which in a vacuum I'm okay with, because obviously we know the rush numbers against Oklahoma State. They're terrible at stopping the run, and that was the case today. But when you get to 2nd and 9, 3rd and 8, which happened twice, Oklahoma State's going to dial up pressure. And if they were if they didn't suck so bad against the run and you couldn't establish the line of scrimmage as well as you did, they were going to bring more pressure. And every time they did, Sawyer was uncomfortable, really uncomfortable. He's handled pressure fairly well this year, but whatever Oklahoma State was doing was giving him a ton of fits. And so, yeah, that's something that they will need to work on. That's no doubt. I think that was the only demerit on Spavital today, or really the last 2 weeks. But I think he and Dave have had a good last 2 weeks. My thoughts on the crowd today. Honestly, guys, at this point, I really couldn't care less. I mean, if you want me to sit here and critique how bad the stripe out was and how there was no one on the sunny side of the field, listen to Locked On Big 12. Drake will give that to you all day long. He has for a couple of years. I don't know what to tell you. I personally, I don't. Obviously, Baylor is not one of the top fan bases in all of college football. It was very hot there today, especially on that sun side. If you were able to see the other side, which you can't really on TV, it was packed to the gills on that side. So, I mean, yeah, I think it's going to be a good crowd next week. But like, I don't know what else to say. I mean, we're 3 or 4 years of this stuff. Like, I don't have anything fresh to bring to the table. I get really exhausted seeing people point out how bad the crowds are every week. It's like, dude, we get it. What do you expect at this point? You know, like, it's clearly the standard is, unless Baylor's a 10-win team, they're not going to have great crowds anymore. Like, great crowds. This was a fine crowd today, I thought, for the most part. But yeah, the second half, it didn't look great. And I'm sure it didn't look good on TV. And some people care about that. I don't really care about that much anymore. You know, I don't. But Polo Bear points out Sunside just kind of sucks. Terrible fans. I don't know. Most of it was the students. Students had a good turnout today. I get it because I've been there. I'm just spending too much time on the crowd, more than I thought I would. I've been there. I've been in that student section when it's hot and it's a 2:30 game and it's 90 degrees. That sun wears you out. Like, it absolutely beats you down. It's tough, man. Like, it can really, if you're not properly hydrated or ready for that, it can knock you out. So I do have some sympathy for that side of the stadium. But yeah, it wasn't a great crowd. But like, what do you want me to say? I don't know what to tell you. The crowd that was there got to see a really great game. And And what we're seeing is a team growing up in front of our eyes. And I think that's really cool. We're seeing it at several different positions. We're seeing it with a coaching staff, I think. But today's guys, you look on defense, it's Matt Jones having possibly a career game in a long career, year 7. And we're 6 or 7, one of them. Maybe it's only 6. Sorry, Matt. And then obviously on the offensive side, Dawson Pendergrass, 87 yards on one drive. This is a guy who has not gotten a lot of touches this year, especially the last couple of weeks. It's been Bryson Washington's backfield. And I'm a guy who loves to have defined roles, but also, in terms of the running back room, but also when you're hot, you're hot. And this was Dawson's game. This was absolutely Dawson Pendergrass's game. Career day. He has been on the bench quite a lot this year. And today he made OSU his female dog. I don't know what to tell you. He was great. And that was really, really fun to watch for a guy who obviously showed us so much promise last year. Raphael says, do you think Aranda is off the hot seat now? No, but you can't deny that he's on a good streak right now, and Baylor's on a good streak. Because again, I mean, they're 2 wins from bowl eligibility. So if they don't make a bowl game, I think he's gone. I think it's a tough one to swallow, even with some of the momentum you built up here. Because by the way, looking into this game, this morning, like I had a thought. I was like, let's say OSU just does come out really desperate, makes the plays, has the effort, and they win. And Baylor is flat Baylor the way they've been at McLean the last couple of years in the conference. And they lose this game by double digits. Like that's really bad to an 0-4 team in the conference if you lost that game by double digits. But it's if that were the case, like you would have been right back to really, really hot seat zone. Thankful it didn't happen. And he's still got a ways to go, as does this team. But the confidence is sky high right now in that locker room. It really is. And it's starting to be that way for the fans. So is he off the hot seat? No, but things are good right now, and we're okay to just live in that for the next couple of weeks. Dave said our OL loves finishing guys. He also said something about stacking up bodies and wants to get that body count higher. And all I could think was, Dave, who doesn't want to get their body count up? It was maybe not the most eloquent, Bailey, but it was a good couple of Dave Aranda quotes in there. And boy, I'll say this other thing about Dave Aranda. I don't want to sound like too homerish with it, but like I said this before when calling for Dave Aranda's job, because I thought he should have been fired last year. I kept saying we all wanted this Dave Aranda thing to work out because I think a lot of us like his personality and likes the way he handles things. I don't love the way with the media, but overall, like you can tell that's a guy who people really gravitate towards and really like. But my point was it just hadn't worked out. And when you see it working and he comes in there and he's really happy and he's joking, like he's genuinely making the press conference laugh, like that's really good. It's a good thing, Baylor fans. It's okay to live in this good while we have it. We have been searching for that for years, and still there will be people in the comments who are like, they haven't done anything yet. Oklahoma State sucks. Tech's defense sucks. You haven't played anybody or beaten anybody. Like, it's still not good enough. Oh, boy, I remember when there was a time where we wouldn't celebrate wins against 0-4 teams in the Big 12. It's okay to enjoy this. Enjoy this. You've won 2 games in a row, and you've got a really big game next week. And I don't think any of us on that bye week were thinking, oh, yeah, in 3 weeks from now, you're going to have a really good, intriguing game in front of you. And not for the reason of, like, you need to win it for bowl eligibility. Like, you know what I mean? I don't think any of us were thinking there's going to be a marquee game with Baylor in it next week. And Zach makes a great point here about those people who are saying you haven't beaten anyone that was very good. That's the great news. You don't have that in front of you. You don't have great teams in front of you. You have TCU playing well right now. I wouldn't call them a great team. Houston, not a great team. West Virginia, showing to be not a great team. Kansas, very much not a great team. You don't have to worry about beating great teams right now. You barely have to worry about beating some good teams. I think most every team in this conference is good, but That's the beauty of this. Who needs to be battle tested if you're not going to be tested the rest of the season? And Thomas brings up a great point that my guy Jackson Posey brought up in the press conference. Sawyer Robertson, first quarterback since RG3 to have 3 passing touchdowns and a 40-yard rushing touchdown. I told Jackson it's a little bit of stat cherry picking there, but hey, Sawyer, when asked the question, Sawyer goes, "It's really cool to hear that." Like he's enjoying this moment too. These guys are enjoying this moment. It's been a long, tough road the last couple of years for all of us involved, but especially the guys in that locker room. And to see them happy about a very good performance today for the second straight week, that's cool. And we're going to go kind of break this thing down by the numbers here over the next couple of days. But yeah, this is going to be a fun build-up week. We are going to have a massive football game on Saturday night for this Baylor football team. And then when I'm breaking it down on the Monday show, we'll also be preparing for a basketball game and a top 10 matchup. Things can turn pretty quickly with Baylor athletics. As someone who's been around it a long time now, I think a long time, over a decade, things can change very quickly with Baylor. And it can really be some major mood swings in how this athletics department is doing. And if they win Saturday night, and we're talking about a win against TCU and 3 wins in a row, and a top 10 basketball matchup that night, that's going to be a really good thing for Mac Rhodes, really good thing for Baylor, really good thing for all of us. And honestly, these Baylor post-game shows are a really good thing for me, and I hope all of you as well. Again, so flattered by the numbers that are rolling in here and the comment section. That's what I care about with post games. That's why I like doing the post games, because the comment section, like I love doing that back and forth. So if you got a thought, put it in there. I don't care how stupid it is. Sometimes I'll call it stupid, but I'm stupid too. You can call me stupid if you want, but like back it up and or be funny. Anyway, that's going to wrap things up on the post game show. Baylor 38, Oklahoma State 28. I just think, I mean, it's like the Frank Sinatra song that's called My Way. Regrets, I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention. You know, did Baylor do some things wrong today? Yeah. I thought they kept Oklahoma State in this game far too long, but then again, too few to mention. They won a Big 12 game by 10 points. You know, that a game that they didn't trail until after the first score. It was 3-0. They didn't trail again after that. For this Baylor team, that's awesome. And you guys are awesome too. Thanks so much for making it your first listen today and every day. We're going to break this thing down even further on Monday's show. We're going to get you ready for TCU all week. And then we got basketball going on too, which doesn't seem, we're not as desperate for as we were a few weeks ago, which is, I mean, about all you could ask for when we were in that 2-4 hole. Anyway, we'll see you on Monday. Thanks again, guys, so much. Let's keep this thing rolling. If you're watching or listening after the fact, get involved in the comment section. Let me know what you thought about this win, what you think about next week. If you think we're all blowing it out of proportion, let me know down in the comment section. Be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. We're getting very close to 3,000. That's the number we want to hit, 3,000 subscribers here in the next couple of weeks before the end of football season, hopefully. Ring that notification bell to get notified every time that we drop a video on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. We'll see you Monday on your favorite show, Locked On Baylor.